Well then, we are back with more understandings from the Renewed Covenant. The translation used is the Aramaic English translation of the word regarding the many revelations and explanations and teachings of the Mashiach and the very prophet of whom Moshe spoke, and he spoke regarding him as the very person that should be heard, because he would bring revelations and directions of the future. So then, understanding from the viewpoint who he was, Shimon was then a shaliach, he was his disciple, and Shimon then had an understanding from heaven, and an anointing did flow through him while he was then answering the question regarding who the Messiah was. So without his perception, an anointing had a very true flow through him, and he wasn't aware of it. He knew for sure he was the son of Elohim, the true Messiah, but then the Messiah had to respond because he felt the anointing coming through. And he said, "Anointed you are, Shimon, because what you have said did not come from you or your flesh. It came from heaven." Every time the Messiah is speaking of the flesh, he is speaking of the lack of link with heaven. So when there is a lack of link from heaven, the words spoken comes from the sinful world. So then when the Messiah said, "Anointed you are, Shimon," because those words came from heaven, he felt the link from Yahweh, the true creator from heaven, and himself as the representative of heaven. So when the Messiah then speaks, he always speaks anointing and direction, and when he speaks in parables, he then gives the understanding for both sides, the set apart and Gentiles, with the objective of then delineating who those people would then participate in his anointing. There are those, obviously, he then spoke, and those people then they would be inclined, oh, he's speaking of money, he's speaking of money, he's speaking of money, he's speaking of money, because it's the only true understanding they had back in those days. They want to have the influential side of the religion in order to get rich, because then they would mesmerize the people with lies and they would get rich. And the other people then, obviously, the true people would understand in the spirit. So when he was speaking then in parables, he was then delineating via parables those who would be involved with his anointing versus those that would not. But then in this world that we are living in, each and every person, mostly they want more money, they want more influence, they want more power, they want more manipulation. And ever since the world's system started, it never worked. And it won't be the first time, because Brother Daniel, when he saw the statue, in his own understanding that he received from heaven in the form of a dream. Understand, Brother Daniel, he was not in a holy city, so he had to have a dream, and he had a dream. Every time the word states Brother Daniel having visions, he did not have a vision. While he was at the river, while he was at the countryside, while he went for a walk, and while he rested, he had dreams. And then in the dreams, then those dreams were explained. As they were explained when Joseph the stepfather of the Mashiach, had his own dream regarding his wife. The angel showed up in a dream. He was outside of Jerusalem and he had to have a dream. Miriam, she did not have a vision. Miriam had a dream. It is consistent every time. The reason why she had a dream, because she was not in the city of Jerusalem. She was outside of the city. Jerusalem is considered a camp. It is synonymous in the spirit of a camp of the Holy Hebrews when they were in the desert. So then, the desert, the tabernacle, and its camp equals Jerusalem when it is closed, when the gates are closed, when the city is functioning as per design. So then, tabernacle in the desert, camp in the desert equals Jerusalem when it is closed, equals renewed covenant going around the world forming holy lands. Those are equals. So then, understanding then from the viewpoint of Brother Daniel, he then had a dream. And these days there are so many other areas a person can speak of, but then the main understanding from these is when the Mashiach then was speaking. He was speaking then in parables, so then he was delineating whom he wanted in his anointing, whom those they did not have a part in it. In the future, the Mashiach then, he did understand that these people would have to go out and form holy lands. So when he felt the anointing from Shimon, he had to say it. And these days, people are mixing their abilities of earning money, their abilities of manipulating their system, and the ability of then control the people as having some sort of a faith factor, and then they link with the divine. It's absolutely wrong. Has no link with any kind of a divine presence. It's a pure fleshly situation, because the Mashiach is only found in his holy camps. Some people may not like it because their pride in what they do, they get so prideful and boastful because of what they are earning, their positions, their importance, their banking, their money, their transactions makes them important. And because then they received those through their own manipulations, that they consider themselves in quote faithful, and then some sort of a God had favored upon them when there is no link. Absolutely no link with heaven. It's pure manipulation of their own. That's why the Mashiach, he does not get involved. That's why the church is a total failure around the world. There are some understandings when people, they want to be nice. It's fine. People can be nice. They can help other people. They can organize people coming together to help other people, and then building homes and building roads and such. Those are fine. But there is no link with heaven. The link with the heaven regarding these people that so named the faithful, they want to be recognized by what they do. There is no link with what heaven is doing in their lives. So then when they do, and they earn a position, they earn money, they have a nice family, they want to be recognized by their achievements. So their achievements comes first, then they put the word faithful after. Every time. Because their faith is based in what they can show forth. What can you show forth of what you do? If you say a person doesn't have a job, doesn't have income, doesn't have a family, and lives alone, a person is not faithful. However, if you find a person that is with a nice job, a nice pay, nice family, then a person is faithful. And there is no link from heaven. Because heaven states, if you then live by the truth, it does not mean a person will be perfect. If you live by the truth, then you are counted worthy. That's why then the shaliach in the renewed covenant was stating in the congregation, sometimes you would come in rich people and they would honor those rich people because they were given money. But when an unfortunate person would come, oh, you can sit near our ground, nearby our shoes. Are you not making exceptions and therefore being evil? Elohim is not deceived by people being rich and trying to be important. What he wants is his holy camps in place as per plan, as they were told. Either we go along with it or we are not saved. Every time the Messiah is speaking of faith, it is anointing, never faith. Because faith does not exist from the Hebraic understanding. How can you invent a word regarding faith when most of the people from those congregations, they think the Torah was abolished? Faith was an invented word. Because places manipulation as a form of a heavenly link. And then if you trace it back, faith doesn't exist. They want a word to identify with themselves from what they do. They do, and they want to be recognized by their fleshly works, and they want a word for it to link with heaven. So they have nice families, they have nice jobs, they provide for their families, as any kind of a dog, cat, or bird would do. But then they want to link with heaven because they are doing so much and they want to be recognized. Then they came up with the word of faith. If you do so much and you act in a certain way, if you believe in a certain way, even though they maintain the first day observance rather than the seventh, it shows that it is a sin, yet they want to be recognized by what they do. So then they came up with the word faith. Substance of what you hope, of evidences what you can't observe in crazy situations. Such as interpretations of faith, and the word never existed, from a viewpoint where they think the Torah was abolished. And then the Messiah said the world would hate so much because it reflects what his teachings were. The situation is the camps are returning, liking it or not. The world is going to get worse and worse and worse and worse until the discipline of Elohim comes upon his people and they return to their camps. And more than likely, certainly, they're going to be shoved in there. as typical of disobedient Israel. And the Creator was relating with them, and He said they were disobedient and contrary people. He was absolutely sure and certain, and hasn't changed for centuries. So far, most of them are liars, they are cheaters, they are thieves. They mix themselves with the world system, and the Yahweh said for them not to do it. They should be in their camps, exercising the second service. The Mashiach told them very in a specific understanding. He said, do not get yourselves involved with the world system. Remain in the camps while you go out. We don't have the record, but we know for sure He said it. Because the whole purpose of the salvation plan for the Gentiles was based upon the salvation plan that was given to His own nation. And then what do the Jews or the Hebrews, Jews do not exist. Jews are mixing holy laws with the Takanot Maasim. What the Hebrews are doing, they are involving themselves with the world system, stealing the trade from the Gentiles, while the Gentiles, they get pushed with the Torah upon their throats. That's why in the near future they're going to be shoved back in their camps. Because they are contrary people. If it does not take a strong hand and strong arm of the Creator Himself, they don't line up. They are stray animals. And then in Revelation, the 20th chapter, the 9th verse states very plainly, and they, the world, went around encircling the holy camps and the holy city. Retracted back, you're going to find at some point they're going to return to their camps. The world's trade, they were meant for Gentiles, not meant for set apart. But then what the Creator said, then they did the reverse. They did the contrary. Then the set apart scandalized themselves, they got involved with the trades of the world. And then the Gentiles, they can't have the trades of the world on their own potential. Then they got themselves mixed with ministries that do not exist. That's why the world system is in crisis, and then the church system is busted. Neither side working. It's amazing, isn't it? The world is in a huge economical crisis because of the set apart. The church doesn't work because the Gentiles are trying to do the work they should never be doing. The problem is the Creator can't be deceived. He wasn't born yesterday, not the day before, or the day after. He always existed, He exists, and He shall exist forever. We don't know where He came from, because He's always existed. It's not our ability or our expertise to be pondering upon who He is and where He came from. The task is the world is in trouble, and He wants us, the Gentiles, to be encouraging His set-apart people to return to their camps, so He can resume the duties and then close this age and then enjoy the age to come. That's the objective. And then when the Gentiles, they don't understand the factor of the camps, and they talk about their own junky congregations that never existed, then they are not saved. And then in the very own scriptures, even though it's counteralized, it stated salvation comes from the Hebraic line. If salvation came from the Hebraic line as per their own counteralized scriptures, it would have to have a continuation of the Hebraic line. The Creator is not going to change Himself because of the understandings of people. Not because they should do like this, or because they think it should be done like the other way. No, He has His own way of doing it. If we don't line up with it, then we are not saved. It's extremely simple. It's not for us to put our trust in presidents, in politicians, in pastors, in teachers, evangelists, miracle workers. Absolutely no person except His own Son. Now, when there is a problem in the world where the set-apart people are not instructing properly, then the Creator, He takes another turn. Amos, the prophet, he was not a prophet. He was not even a son of a prophet. He was not from the priestly line. He was a simple orcharder, but Elohim removed him out of the farm and told him, prophesy. Because the system was then scandalized, it was contaminated, the priestly line was contaminated, the kings were contaminated, the whole religious system of Israel was contaminated, yet the Creator had His word. And Amos said, very in a specific understanding, he was not a prophet, not a son of a prophet. He was not from the priestly line. He was a simple orcharder, an animal tender. Yet he was taking from the animals in his orchards to take care of the words of Elohim. So what people think are so normal for them to go on, and then they have their jobs, they have their responsibilities, but when it comes to the Spirit, they don't understand. But they want to be recognized for what they do. Then there is no link with it. Please stay tuned, because much more is coming up, because not only these words should be shared around the world, because the system of the world and its church system must be confronted. People think they are going to heaven someday. There is no heaven. Certain congregations are so crazy, they are baptizing dead Jews to make sure they are going to heaven when heaven does not exist. From the viewpoint where they are coming from, does not exist. People, they were not made for heaven, they were made for the earth. The Creator, He is the ultimate authority. He decides those are going to be angelic beings. He decides those are going to be humans. We are humans made for the earth. We understand there is a heaven where He inhabits. We don't go there, we don't bother there, we don't knock there. We don't ask questions there. We hear what he says and then we are obedient. And then the truth of it, when we have requests, the normal flow of understanding is this. There are the camps of the Holy Hebrews saved in the Messiah, functioning. Then, when there is a request from Gentiles, the Gentiles, they don't pray, they don't worship. When the set apart Hebrews, they come out of their camps, they mix themselves with the Gentiles for prayer. Then comes an anointing from heaven because of the set apart Holy Hebrews. Then it is the time when the Gentiles are led to pray. There is no personal request from each person and then God is listening each request. No, He is not listening each request from their own understandings. The set apart Hebrew brother comes amongst them and then they pray together. Whatsoever comes from heaven comes from heaven. The petitions understanding from the Messiah and from the Shalishim is this. When you ask, being a set apart person, we are not set apart person. When the set apart people would ask for more revelations from the Torah, then they would be granted, and they were granted with it. There is no link with this earth. This is how bad the situation is amongst the Gentiles regarding faith, regarding anointing, regarding heaven, and going to heaven. Can you imagine? It's crazy. And the main factor is when people they come around and they are Gentiles thinking that the Torah was abolished, how are they going to pray? They're coming in the presence of the Creator, nearing Him with the prayers of His own holy laws being abolished. It has to be stupid. How can you hear from a Creator where you think then His holy laws were abolished, yet you hear from heaven? You don't hear from heaven. You hear from the world. Stay tuned. Much more coming up.